Hello, it's Kim. Nice to be here with you. I'm trying to line things up on screen, and I realize if I'm too close to the camera, I look naked. So there is a shirt going on under the hoodie. Anyway, welcome to the live in which I am conscious of all the things. I have a drink. It is a iced tea situation. It's a new. That's hard to read. See if they're back here. It's a new brand I found. Also using a new microphone. So let me know if you can't hear me very well. Um, oh, and why is this? Hold on. Why do I have two? Sorry, this is confusing. I'm on StreamYard twice. If I add it to stream, I'll look like I'm doing an interview of myself. I don't know how to take that off. This is irritating. See, there are two of me now. I don't know what to do about that. All right, let's get rid of this one. Can I get rid of this one? Boy. People, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Let me, what? Let's try that. Can I get rid of somebody? There we go. Let's now try, stop. Device not, okay, I fixed it. All right, I was interviewing myself. Anyway, so I found a drink at the store. It is called Swoon Zero Sugar Peach Tea. And there was also, I'm sorry, this one is just sweet tea. There was also a peach tea. It's 5 calories. Oi, oi. People, I can't read without my glasses now. Hold on. These are a little smudged. Brewed black tea. Oh, black tea, so it's a little caffeine in there. Natural flavors, I don't know. Citric acid, monk fruit extract, ascorbic acid, malic acid, lactic acid. So basically flavor and tea. So sweetened with monk fruit. It is very sweet and very tea. It's not bad. It was it said it was created by a type 1 diabetic. So there you go. It's weird because I think it's the citric acid in it. If you told me this was peach tea, I would believe you. It's not like super peachy, but it tastes sort of apricot-y. It's just like that citric acidy flavor. Anyway, very tasty, not bad. How's the sound, people? I got a new little microphone. And so I was just trying to make the sound better. Oh, Juju Bunny, it's 110 degrees in Plano. I put on my little hoodie because it's foggy today. It's not, I'm wearing a tank top with a hoodie, so it's not cold. It's just a slight chill. Anyway, it's everybody living in the Bay Area needs things like this. This super lightweight hoodies because this is from what's it called? I just tore the tag out of it. Viore. I really like this color. It's like persimmon. Viore. They make great like athleisure, like exercise clothes, but that you can wear like for errands. Which is pretty much all I wear when I'm at home or in my regular life. So Viore. They're not cheap, but they're super well made, and they have like I think at least a 3-month return policy. And they like wear it as much as you want, and try it out. And if it doesn't work for you, bring it back. And I like companies with that kind of policy. Yeah, the San Francisco Bay Area, Dennis. Yeah, it is funny. I like wrote a post on Facebook and I had to take it down because people thought I was really bitchy, which I am, but I try not to like emphasize on social media that people in the San Francisco Bay Area are very particular about what you call this area of the world. Like we get that Bay Area is not enough if you're not in the local area. Cause like, I think there's a Bay Area in Boston too. So just like, so we get that. So we'll say San Francisco Bay Area like you did. But I got on okay, I'll share the story. My boyfriend said that this story did not make me look like a very nice person, I will say. But I'm definitely going to say it does make me look sort of like a know-it-all in a bad way. Not perfect people. But I got on a plane recently, and the woman welcoming us to the plane, which was flying to San Francisco, said, "Headed to San Fran?" Well, first of all, that's a dumb question. I didn't say that part, but I'm getting on a plane to San Francisco. Anyway, and she said, "Are you from there?" And I said, "Yeah." And this was the bitchy part. Sorry for the swearing if you think that's a swear word. Um, I said, "Yeah, you're not, are you?" And she was like, "No, can you tell?" And I was like, "Yeah, because we don't call it San Fran." And she looked at me kind of confused, and I was like, "If you fly there regularly, just a heads up that people from San Francisco don't call it San Fran. We call it SF or San Francisco." It's pretty much it. And like I said, or the city. If you're in the East Bay, you might call it or in the city or the Bay Area. But we get that is has to you have to regionally make sense for that. But we're very most of us natives are very particular about what you call us here. And I just sort of was like having this conversation, but the important part I need to make sure people understand, I'm kind of making fun of myself by saying we're kind of weird that we're so persnickety about the name of our city. But I notice a lot of people call it San Fran. And then I'm like, "Oh, you're not from here." And then but that my boyfriend who's not from here, right, he was like, that's sort of like clubby. That's like, and I was like, "You're right." I probably but my first thought really was I should have helped this lady out. She's a stewardess. I don't call them that. Flight attendant. Um, she's a flight attendant who flies to San Francisco all the time, and she's welcoming like 50% of the people onto the plane by saying, "Have a good trip to San Fran." And all of us are like, grumble, grumble, grumble. Not all of us, but some of anyway, I just was like, there's part of me, and this is where like a lot of my like know-it-allness. I'm like, I should help this person out and tell them what they seemingly don't know. And I understand I have a problem. I understand this is my problem, not their well, I'm trying to understand that this is my problem and not their problem, and I probably shouldn't make it their problem. And, anyway, that's my life. Okay, that's enough about me and my neuroses. Dennis asked him by the way, you can help a girl out by asking me a question, and then I'll stop rambling and start answering questions. So go ahead and do that. Dennis says, "How much local travel are you doing? Sonoma, Santa Cruz, yada yada yada." Well, I in the past few years, I haven't been doing that much local travel, but I am 45 years and I am from this part. I'm from the Bay Area. Born in Berkeley. My parents live in San Francisco. My brother lives in Berkeley. I went to UC Santa Cruz, which is only about a 90-minute drive from here. Is it 90? I think it's about. And and my second job, my job in my early 20s was a house, I would go to people's houses to sell things. I sold closet. So I would drive and I worked for both um, the, franchise that was the East Bay franchise for a couple of years, and then the, San Francisco Marin franchise hired me for a couple of years. So, basically, I've been everywhere in the Bay Area, at some time or another, and this was before there were smartphones. So, I had a Rand McNally map book where you'd look up the address in the back of the book and then, like, figure out which page of the map book you had to go to. So, I am pretty well versed in the Greater Bay Area, I'll put it that way. Anyway, so to answer your question, Dennis, yeah, and I spent 4 years in Santa Cruz because I went to college there. All right. So, Juju, but are sparkling waters okay? Any ingredients to stay away from? So, I really think that how careful you need to be with ingredients depends upon, like, do you have any sensitivities, um, around your food, right? So, do you have if you have obviously, if you have sensitivities to specific things, if you have, um, uh, problems with, uh, symptoms that come up, you're gonna have to obviously be pretty careful about certain ingredients. But from a general health perspective, um, you know, you just have to know the effect. So, like, obviously, if there's sugar, I feel like how far down the rabbit hole do I wanna explain here? If there's sugar, that's gonna have an effect, things like that. But in general, is there, like, a specific ingredient that I don't think people know that they should pay attention to? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, like, as I was reading this, I know that some of you might have a reaction to the fact that it contains, quote, "natural flavors." Because and lots of things could hide in natural flavors. Um, and so that can be kind of like such a vague term, and you'd be like, "I don't know what that could be anything." And so, some people are worried about that. But I'm a big believer that if you're a relatively healthy person, and you're eating generally good whole food ingredient things, that a little bit here and a little bit there of a flavoring or, something like that, I'm not super concerned about it. So if you're talking about something that somebody might put in sparkling water, I don't think there's a huge concern there. I know that there was a concern a couple years back with, the levels of, like, plastic that were found in certain packaging. So, with specifically Topo Chico, and so that stuff can come up, like, depending on how a company packages their juice, and by juice, I don't mean juice, sparkling water, whatever they're selling. um, then, you might need to know about that or pay attention to that. But I also think that we can drive ourselves crazy by majoring in the minors. I will say that for the most people, if you eat a generally good diet and you drink a lot of water and it's going to be a pretty rare person that all of their goals are not being met because of the bottling plant using slightly higher XYZ in the bottle than something else. So I just try to go at it with a kind of common sense approach. And if you've fixed everything else and you're racking your brain about all of the reasons you might not be achieving your goal, and the only thing that's left between you and perfection is the sparkling water, well, at that point, we can address the sparkling water. But there's usually a lot more obvious things that might be going wrong before we get to the sparkling water being an issue. So, sorry if I seem distracted. This double camera thing on this feed got me I keep seeing notices that are weird, so I apologize if I'm a little distracted. Um, what else is going on in the world? Let's see. Dennis is telling me that several Unix operating systems are named after the cities that I am from. All right, cool beans. So I did a little thingy today I recorded a video and I did some cooking and I recorded some podcasts that are coming out about people wanting to go more low carb than keto and how do they do that. Excuse me. Apparently the tea is making me a little burpy. And so I worked on that today. I missed a meeting because I cannot keep track of time, so that was not my favorite thing today. And yeah, so that's been my day. Melinda asked, "Can you eat too few calories?" Sure. Um, so I tend to think about calories as just a way to budget, right? So just like if have you have a certain amount of money you earn, or had earned, and now you have it saved. And so you have a certain income and you have certain needs, right? So one person may have a very high income and very low needs, which means they're always going to be the calorie thing is always going to work out well for them in terms of being able to eat whatever, however much they want because they have a very high, um, so the equivalent is like a very high metabolic rate with a very low hunger level, right? That person's going to struggle to keep weight on. Whereas a person with a very low metabolic rate with very high hunger needs, that's the equivalent of a person with very low income with a lot of expenses. And so they're kind of just calories are a way to think about budget. Excuse me. So, um, can you eat too few calories? Let's talk about it. Is starvation, so one of the things people will sometimes say is you eat too low a calorie, you'll get into something called starvation mode. That's not so much the thing. But what you can do is overly tilt yourself towards more aggressive metabolic adaptation than maybe you want to. The good news is metabolic adaptation, a lot of people be like, I've adapted, my metabolism is adapted, I feel broken. Metabolic adaptation is a sign that your metabolism is working properly. If you undereat for a significant period of time, what happens is your metabolic rate gets turned down. Why is that? Well, evolutionarily, that's a hard word to say. Our body knows that if we're eating very little, the likelihood is that there isn't much food available because evolutionarily, we wouldn't have eaten very little, like ever, unless it just wasn't there to eat. We are designed to eat as much as we can because there will, in our ancestry, there were always periods of time where access to food was very low. So we were evolutionized um, to to put on weight, to store fat for the winter, to have a body that ate, that was driven to eat. And so if we're doing the opposite of that, the assumption of our body is it's because there isn't food available. And if there isn't a lot of food available, that means we should economize our metabolism. So if you're chronically eating very few calories, your metabolic rate is designed to go down. Your thyroid function declines, your fidgeting, your movement, your desire to exercise, your desire to use calories, that goes down. And so over time, by eating less, you burn less, then you eat less, then you burn less, and you're just kind of on a downward spiral. This downward spiral is going to cause you to be unhappy and also to have this teeny budget. So now you're maintaining your weight on pretty low calories. And once you've done that, your budget is very small. You have things to buy with that budget. You have to get in all your micronutrient needs. You have to get in all your energy, right? You humans are designed to get the nutrients we need through our food. We absorb some vitamin D through our skin, but mostly we're not like a frog, or I don't know much about frogs, but we don't absorb most of our nutrients. We eat most of our nutrients. And so if the shrinking food budget we've got can mean we're going to end up um, malnourished because we're just eating less and less and less. Now, will we ever stop losing weight if we continue to eat less and less and less? No, that's not what it means to have metabolic adaptation. But but will get to the point if you continue to go down that path where you now, to lose additional weight, have to eat so little that you're miserable and malnourished. That can happen. And so we want to make sure we're doing what we can to eat enough that we're a healthy human. And so we have to manage our periods of cutting and maintaining our weight and 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 manage our weight loss in such a way to lose weight on as many calories as possible rather than lose weight on as few calories as possible. Because the more aggressively we cut our calories, the more rapidly and more aggressively our metabolism will respond. So we're just trying to manage those different desires and needs and that. Um, Craig says, when you prick your finger to test your blood, is it important to use the initial finger prick or remove it and squeeze out another drop of blood? Probably not important, but I've heard both. So quite honestly, what I often do is like, well, it's already, it depends. Blood, the blood, um, the little blood, what do you call it? The thing you test your blood with, what's that called? The thing that you stick into the glucometer, your reader, the little thing that reads your blood. Probably a name for that in my brain. I'll test that first drop just as those little testers are cheap, right? For blood. And then I'll do the thing they say, which is to wipe that off with a clean cloth. Then you have to make sure it dries because if there's water, or alcohol in that test strip, thank you, Sasha. That is what it is called, the test strip. And then I'll let it dry, and then I'll test again. So I don't honestly, I think the reason they have you do that is that first, the blood coming out initially could be contaminated, um, with something on your skin initially. That's my thought. Um, I've honestly never seen those numbers very much. So I'm like, well, the drop's there, I'll test it. Then I, do it again with it, clean, wipe it off, make sure it's dry, squeeze out another drop, test it again. And I've never seen those two readings all that different. So I'm not a nurse or a medical professional, but I do know that the protocol you're supposed to follow is to wipe the drop off and test and squeeze out a second drop. Um, Selena says, after a cut, once the weight loss goal is achieved by achieving a 10% drop in weight, how many weeks should a reverse and maintenance period last? So Selena is referring to doing nutritional periodization. So you've got like a period of doing a cut. So there's a period of time you're trying to see weight loss or fat loss. Then there's a period of time you're going into maintenance or another type of approach. So, and then you're going back into another period. So you're doing a cycle, or you're cycling through different periods of goals. So if you have done a cut, you've achieved your 10% drop in weight. That's usually about what you're looking at in any given cut, maybe. And you're looking to kind of take that break. You don't do a reverse every time. You might just go to maintenance. And so I usually match the cut about. So if my cut was 10 weeks, I might do 10 weeks at maintenance. If I'm throwing in a reverse, that's gonna make that longer because I'm gonna do like a couple weeks at maintenance. I'm gonna put in a reverse where I start from maintenance and I'm trying to bump my calories up a little bit. Then I might stay there for a little while. And then the other thing is, if life is hectic, if life is crazy, I'm just gonna spend as much time in maintenance as I need to spend in maintenance. I don't add a cut to an already stressful life. So I just so it's not a given that, oh, at the end of these 10 weeks, I'm absolutely gonna go into another cut. If life doesn't seem right at that point, I'm not going to. But I try and spend as much time in maintenance. Actually, I try to spend more time in maintenance than I do in cuts for the most part. Now, some of these type 3 obese Do you guys know they don't call it morbid obesity anymore? It's type 3, well, actually type 4, 3, 2, and 1 obesity. The going the higher the number, the more severe the level of obesity is. Um, do you also know that I believe the American Medical Association just said that doctors should not count BMI as the only measure of health regarded to weight. So that's interesting. But there's different levels of obesity. Like I said, type 3 and above, I think used to be called morbid obesity. It's now called either extreme or extreme obesity or level 3 and up obesity. If you're significantly obese, you might just continue to cut for a while because that extra weight, the very highest weight, that you're at, might be more of an emergency than other things. So when nutritional periodization is more for people who have maybe lost a significant amount of weight and are now really struggling to get into more of where they want to be, or they're stalled out and they need to rethink, or they're just overweight, no longer obese, and they're looking to cycle through to continue to get their weight down slowly over time in a way where they maintain sanity and as much metabolic rate as possible. There's a question. Sasha said, can you talk about reverse T3, free T3, etc.? I have a doc that won't even test anything but TSH and T4. My TPO antibodies are in the 700s. I definitely wanted to get that down. I've just started selenium. Okay, so Sasha is talking about thyroid numbers. These are the thyroid numbers that people should check on a regular basis are, well, okay, I'll say it this way. If you've never had these numbers checked, then I would definitely check these numbers. TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, TPO, and thyroglobulin antibodies, which is like TGA. And the last two, though, are Hashimoto's antibodies test. If you don't test positive for the antibodies, if you test negative for the antibodies, I don't think you need to test those two every time you from that point forward run these tests. I don't think it's a bad idea to run them every few years just to confirm that you're not developing a problem with Hashimoto's, but it's not something I would although there are several like panels that you can buy where they're just included, no problem testing them. But if they're 0 and they're usually the reading on those is like below 4 or below 9, it just means they're not detectable. If that's the case, do you need to test them every single? No, because just you just want to make sure they remain undetectable. But if you have an issue like Sasha does here, if your antibodies are around the 700s, that's definitely an issue. So what I would probably do if my antibodies were that high, there's something going on where your body is attacking your thyroid. And while it may not be diet related, it might be. And so I might be inclined to do an elimination diet to see if you can narrow down on what your body might be responding poorly to. I would also work on things like you said, like you're taking some selenium. I would work on looking at what possible micronutrient deficiencies you might have. Work on the elimination diet to see if you might have some food sensitivities. Work on sleep and stress. If you have high reverse T3, that's often just a sign that you're in poor metabolic health. Before I went keto, my reverse T3 was in the several hundreds, and now it's under 12, right? So that's a big difference. And so reverse T3, essentially, having high reverse T3 means that when your body is converting T4 to T3, which it has to do for your body to use the thyroid hormone, the T4 is not the kind we use. The T3 is what we use, but the T4 is how it starts. Then it gets converted to T3. Well, if your body is all wackadoodle, instead of converting some of that to T3, it goes to reverse T3, which looks like T3, right? This was what T3 looks like. This is what reverse T3. It's reversed, right? And so your body can't use reverse T3 because it's the wrong shape to fit in the sensor that it's supposed to go into. So we don't want that to happen. But a lot of that is just healing your metabolic damage. The other thing that can cause high reverse T3 is malnutrition. So, like anorexics have high reverse T3, but also people that are not getting all their micro and macronutrients that they need will have high reverse T3 perhaps. So, looking at your nutrition and looking at your metabolic health are going to be two very important things to help change the high reverse T3 issue for people. So, you know, I don't know what to say about practitioners that won't run all the appropriate tests. It takes a long time for the world to change. But in most states, in the United States anyway, you can get these tests run yourself. Then finding somebody to help treat them when you find out there's a problem with those tests, that's also another thing. Melinda says, thanks. I cycle a couple days, 1,300 calories, with a few days, 1,800, a day of 2,000. I don't go under 1,300. Yeah. So, and it's really about what your weekly average is, not what you're like. You're not going to cause a metabolic problem in a day. It's like it's cumulative. So some people do what you do. They cycle up and down through the week, some days higher, some days lower. That works great for people who have variable hunger. Some days they're hungrier, some days they're less hungry. That's perfect. You could do the same thing by coming up with what your weekly average is and averaging it out at a little bit higher, right? Your body doesn't know the difference. It's just what works for you on a personality and hunger and lifestyle basis. Selena says, I hit my weight loss goal. Yay! Congrats, Selena. Um, Officially 147 and the leanest I've been since having my last kid. Thank you for your keto metabolic coaching. I learned what I needed to make the lifestyle changes. I'm so happy. So happy to hear that. Oh, Sasha says she's been carnivore for a year. So you're kind of are on an elimination diet, huh? Um, you might want to go down to just salt and water and beef, like a very limited palette for a month, and then add things back in and see if eggs are being a problem, if dairy's being a problem. It's that is all I can think. But beyond that, looking at maybe some nutrient deficiencies that may be driving some of those things, and then other drivers of autoimmune disease. Because it's not just food, but looking at maybe sleep quality, um, how your circadian rhythm, are you getting enough light? Are you getting enough movement? Or, all like the things that can help a body be healthier. Suzanne said, after having my thyroid test coming in way high, my doctor and I decided to take me off the meds to see if my levels lower on their own. Feel terrible while waiting. I'm sorry. Sasha said, yeah, I may have to get another doctor so I can look at the labs. Sorry about that. Yeah, not having the right doctor is a big problem, especially when you're dealing with something as complicated as Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, and not to be the bearer of bad news, but autoimmune conditions don't tend to happen in isolation. The people who have autoimmune problems tend to have more than one. So I'm not saying you already do, but at some point in your future, you may. And so what does that mean? It means you need to have a really good relationship with your doctor to navigate these waters as you move forward. This ice is really growing on me, I will say. It really does taste like apricots, though. So I'm totally confused with how this is just the sweet tea. Very confused. Anyway, tasty. Yeah, sorry about that, Sasha. I'm bad news. It's me, Captain Buzzkill. Anyway, Uh, what else is going on out there, people? I am here for your questions. I just got a new shipment of my very favorite magnesium. It's magnesium citramate from Thorn. Why is this one my favorite? Well, it's because I not to be TMI, but it really helps my digestion. So if you're somebody who has maybe a little bit of a sluggish problem with digestion, that this can adding so citramate, it's a mix of different magnesiums. One of them is uh, magnesium citrate, and citrate is good for people who have need a little assistance sometimes. So anyway, this one's good for me for that, and it's from Thorn, which is a brand that I really like. They're kind of pricey for sure, but I don't like to worry too much about uh, I don't want to worry about the quality of what I'm buying in terms of supplements. I just would rather buy fewer, better supplements. Same with food. Uh, Craig says, I just completed a 5-day fast, going for a 72-hour, but it got easy and I kept going. My sugar ended up at 49, ketones 5.8. Is 5.8 too high? No, certainly not on a 5-day fast. So I always look at these things in context. Um, uh, if your glucose is low, and your ketones are high, that's generally you're like, okay, that balances out because when we're in a longer fast, you got to think that you've become a bit of a hybrid car and you've switched over to using more ketones. And so sometimes that lower blood glucose will drive your ketones higher so that your brain will have all the energy that it needs. Um, but I don't think that 5.8 is too high, again, for a 5-day fast. I would be confused why I had a 5.8 if I were eating. And I would also be confused why I was a 49 blood sugar if I were eating. But you had a very contextual issue. I will say that I don't really like, again, I am not a doctor and this is not medical advice, but I do know from Jason Fung and Megan Ramos at um, the fasting method that they're not super comfortable having someone go over 6 on an unsupervised fast. So I tend to take that caution and say, for me, granted this never happens for me, but if a friend of mine was fasting and they started seeing ketones over 6, I would say, "Hey, maybe it's time to wrap this up." I wouldn't be like, "Go to the hospital right now." I'd be like, "Maybe your body might." The other thing that I like to point out for people is, that, there's diminishing returns, with long, long fasts, and so I don't know that we necessarily need to do super duper long fasts, and so I think 5 days is fine to wrap that thing up, and so, if I had those numbers, would I be worried? I'll put it that way because I'm not giving medical advice here for anybody. No, but I do know I do use that as a mental guideline, knowing that that the fasting method would probably tell somebody to wrap that up if they reach 6 millimolars. Juju Bunny, have you ever tried keto brains? I try it's like a nootropic, and I tried it at a convention. I think they had some out that you could put in your coffee. It's like a creamer, like a dried MCT powder that you can add to coffee. Is that right? Um, I think I like the taste fine. Uh, I don't love those like powdered creamers. I, it's just a thing. I don't I just personally don't love them. I'm not saying I don't love them, and I think they're a bad idea. Like, they just don't sit well in my stomach. So but I haven't done any real research on it, but I have they're a good company with good quality and good people. I think that, that was a crazy look I just gave you all. I think that if I remember correctly, they partnered with Robert Sykes of, um, Keto Brick, to make a nootropic keto brains. Um, Keto Brick. Words are not my friend today. Um, and that was a real winner. I think I remember hearing. So, um, I don't have anything bad to say, except my body doesn't like powdered MCT oil, and I think powdered MCT oil is, like, how they deliver their product to you. Um, Catherine asked, "Do you have any thoughts on HRT postmenopause and how it relates to osteoporosis, osteopenia?" Yeah, so osteoporosis and osteopenia are of concern. I think they should be of concern to us all. I think the primary prevention of osteopenia or osteoarthritis, um, I'm sorry, or osteoporosis, should be, making sure we get plenty of protein and that we do weight bearing exercise, we lift weights, we do resistance training of some kind. Um, and so those are all important, but I do know that estrogen is very both bone and muscle protective. And so I am very pro uh, hormone replacement therapy personally. Again, I'm not a doctor. Please don't take medical advice from me. Um, Use the advice I might suggest to inform you, educate you, but not make your decision for you. But myself, sorry, I have the allergies and it makes the nose itch. Um, there was a great clip, and after this recording is done, I'll add the clip to the notes. There's a great little clip from an interview that um, Peter Attia did with somebody talking about the importance of hormone replacement therapy and how it's gotten kind of a bad rap. And so I am not yet menopausal. I'm 45. I haven't, not to TMI, I haven't like missed a cycle yet. So unless menopause comes rushing in really fast, because for some people it does. It's like one day they don't notice anything and the next day they're in menopause, right? But it's like a year of having no period is considered that you're at that point you're in menopause. Um, uh, so I'm not there yet, but I can tell you if unless something significant changes, I will be using HRT. I will be looking for bioidentical HRT. So in this clip with Peter Attia, he talks about sort of maybe the possible downsides of synthetic HRT. So things like Premarin, things like that, versus bioidentical being probably a better option. And so I know for myself that my plan at this point is as I get into menopause to go on to bioidentical hormones. That's my plan. I understand that some of you have, estrogen positive breast cancer genes and things like that that might make it more challenging and you're going to have to navigate that. But for myself and for people there aren't any contraindications for, that would be the way that I would go about things. But I do think for sure that I do know that estrogen has a hugely beneficial effect on both muscle mass and bone. Um, and so something to really look at. And yeah, Catherine, like again, not medical advice. Personally, I don't think I would take Premarin. Um, Given what it is, I would look for a bioidentical version of estrogen. And I wouldn't just take estrogen. That's another thing you have to look at. You want to make sure your doctor is testing because the way that hormones work, it's not just one. There's like a matrix between, testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen that they're supposed to happen in a certain flow and pattern. And we don't want to just hit one. We've got to look at how that symphony plays together. Selena says, I did the bio T testosterone and it was life changing. I had the energy I needed to resistance train and run, sleep improved 5 stars. All right. Now we're into like product reviews. But yeah, I think that finding a good doctor later in life that can, later, I don't mean I don't mean like end of life. I just mean as we age, that will help us navigate this road that gets very challenging is very important. I understand. Um, Sasha said, "Oh, I'm excited. I just ordered a G7 CGM. Exciting. That sounds like super fun to play with." And the G7 I hear has a higher degree of accuracy than a lot of others. So good deal on that. Um, what else? What else we got? So, oh, Bonnie says, I've lost all muscle mass. Flab City. Can't take estrogen because of breast cancer. I try to get some exercise. Like I just cleaned 3 horse stalls and try to eat plenty of protein. All right. Excellent. So let's talk about it. Do you need to take estrogen to maintain or gain muscle mass? Probably not. But do you need to focus hard on resistance training and not just activity? Yes. So here's the deal about muscle and resistance training. So mucking out a stall definitely challenges your muscles, right? Not that I know much about it, but I do know, there's lifting, there's moving, there's picking up, right? These are all lifting things. You're lifting weight against resistance, right? If you're shoveling and lifting, gardening, mucking out a horse stall, those things you are lifting, right? You're doing something hard. But I will say there is something called progressive overload. What does that mean? Um, as you get used to a level of hardness, of difficulty, and you gain mastery at that weight, you need to then progress to a higher weight to continue to gain or retain muscle. So the first time you muck out a stall or do heavy gardening where you're carrying around bags of soil and you're digging in the dirt, right? That your muscles are going to be sore. And you've got like you're squatting up and down, you're using those thigh muscles, your legs are going to be sore. And the next time you do it, you're going to be a little less sore. And the next time you're going to be a little less sore because you're still lifting and digging the same amount of weight and resistance. So if we want to maintain muscle mass as we age and as hormones are now working against us, making it easier for us to lose muscle mass, we need to do more and more. Now, obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean more weight, more weight, more weight, because a 90-year-old can't lift more weight than a 40-year-old. But we have to pay attention to how hard it is. It's got to feel hard all the time, like not all. You've got to progress in terms of difficulty. So that's either progression in terms of how long you do it for or how intensely you do it. So no, you don't have to be obscenely sore every time you work out. That's not a good measure. But you have to keep moving that needle. If you keep doing the same level of difficulty as your body gets used to that level of difficulty and adapts to that level of difficulty, it won't keep pushing the needle on muscle mass. So progressive overload. That's what you can think of. You got to progress. So yeah, not everyone can take estrogen, not everyone can take hormones. Understand, absolutely. Got to really push that needle. Get enough protein in and then push the needle on the resistance training. Bonnie says, I guess I need to get my bands out. Yeah. I'm 67 with scar tissue in the chest and shoulders, more exercise. Absolutely going to be very, very helpful to continue to do those things. So, protein is amino acids are a requirement to have what we need in our body to feed our muscles. I'll just say it that way. The other thing you want to address is if you're trying to lose weight, you've got to be very cautious because anytime we lose weight, a certain percentage of that is coming from muscle. We wanna do everything we can to have the large percentage come from fat mass and a very low percentage come from muscle mass. If you're in the wrong circumstances, what does that mean? You're losing weight too fast, you're not eating enough protein, you're not doing resistance training, you're all those kinds of things, um, will mean that the balance will shift, where you're getting very poor quality sleep or very little sleep. Again, that'll tilt tilt the balance towards losing more muscle than fat. So, how do you put yourself in the best possible position? Getting plenty of protein, getting resistance training in, losing at a reasonable pace, getting good sleep. All of that is gonna prioritize fat loss over muscle loss in weight loss, because weight loss doesn't tell you where that weight is coming from. It's just that you will weigh less. And if you end up mostly losing muscle, you have not done yourself a favor in your weight loss endeavors. Um, Amy said, "How many carbs do I aim for when generally low carb as opposed to keto?" So I take the advice from Dr. Donald Layman, who studied weight loss for a very long time at the University of Chicago. He is also the mentor of somebody named Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who some of you may know, who is a very little woman. She's very little, but full of muscle and strong opinions. She's a powerhouse, is what I'm trying to say. Very concentrated powerhouse. I met her in person, and I am like just a big oaf is kind of like I am a large, clumsy person with giant hands and feet. Like I was the 9-year-old that tripped over her feet all the time. So I think I feel awkward around little people. I'm like, I'm just a big person out here. Like I'm like Barney wandering around. And so anyway, she is a mighty force. But Dr. Don Layman was her advisor in pre-med, I think, or college, somewhere along her journey. And he is just super smart, and he is a protein and weight loss researcher. And so he's a smart man who does have done a lot of studies. And where was I going with this? How many carbs? Um, and I met him at a conference and was totally fangirling around him. And, he was very confused about why I was, like, so starstruck. Um, but, uh, because he's an academic, he doesn't get that a lot. But he has looked at basically that if you're not an athlete and you're not super active, I'm I am I am, summing this up. There's probably I could go deeper, but we're getting to the end of the hour. You don't need more than around 130-ish grams in a day, and that might vary if you're a little person versus a big person, and around 40 grams in a meal is probably maxing you out, and so I kinda take that into account, and so for me, as a not super active person, I would say, I think on average, if you're trying to be low carb rather than keto, I wouldn't necessarily say that you should go above around 100 carbs in a day and probably shouldn't go beyond about 40 grams in a meal. Like, are you going to burst into flames if it's 42? No, but like as a rough guideline. And I got that guideline from Dr. Lyon. As well, who thinks that that's kind of like around when you're gonna start to push insulin a little bit. Now, if you're an athlete, if you're super active, if you're in the middle of like a long hike or, you're about to do shot putting at the Olympics, I'm not talking to you. If you're a middle-aged sedentary woman who occasionally goes to the gym, I'm more talking to you. And so to answer your question, Amy, um, I myself aim to keep it under 100 grams of carbs. I think I do best probably around 60 to 70 in a day. I don't maybe worry about it if it's a little higher occasionally or a little lower occasionally, but I kind of if I'm noticing my carbs creeping up and they're like approaching or getting above 100, I'm going to be like, maybe I need to do some reconfiguring of my days here. By the way, it's almost impossible for me to get my carbs up above 100 unless I'm including like a lot of fruit or like some lower carb, like whole food, no, some higher carb things like a potato or even some like Acorn sourdough. It's like an ancient non-wheat grain. I guess it is wheat. Anyway, but like an ancient grain bread or something like that. Like it has to be kind of a denser carb source for me to really approach or get over 100 grams. So I try and concentrate my carbs on things like salads, vegetables. Like I just made a salad. Here, I took a picture of it. I like to make salads that I can like that kinda can sit in the fridge for a few days. Um, so I just made it and I took a picture. You see that? It's a big bowl. This is like 8 cups of salad. This is not a serving. This is several days worth of salad. So I just chopped up like hearts of palm and some, um, artichoke hearts in water, some little Persian cucumbers. I threw in a package of seasoned cauliflower rice and some red and yellow peppers. I'll just anything that's going to hold up in the fridge for a few days and be crunchy. And then I'll put dressing or I'll make a dressing for it. And so it can just sit in the fridge and I can take a scoop out with dinner every night. So, but this is for a big serving of this. It's probably like 15 grams of carbs, which for a keto diet is going to be too many carbs for a meal, right? But certainly not going to cause a huge problem in terms of a low carb diet. So I try and eat, my point was, I try to eat more things like that than like adding things that are more densely herbaceous. But it's the summer, and in the summer, I do eat a little bit more fruit. I have been listening to some lectures by Richard Johnson. Is that his name? That doesn't sound right. Um, hold on. Indeed, yes, Richard Johnson. Okay, sorry, my brain was like, right? That can't be his name. That can't be his name. Um, oh, I see why I'm confusing. I've got you guys. And so I am having more fruit these days, but Rick Johnson he's a fructose researcher and very smart. You can look for him on YouTube, and he was on the Peter Attia podcast as well. And so I do more like lower fructose fruits, or I do portions that are in more reasonable quantities. But I also know I do more of these kinds of things in the summer versus all year long. And so I try and pay attention to not eating too high a fructose diet, but I will eat some fruit. And I'll try and concentrate on the lower fructose choices. Or if I'm eating something with a little bit more fructose, I will try and have less of that fruit or not have it very often. So that's how I navigate my low carb instead of keto diet these days. I think about the foods that I'm eating. I try and prioritize whole foods over processed foods. So big salad instead of bread. Will I have a piece of like very like sourdough, well-treated acorn-based bread every once in a while? Yes. Um, but I do so very sparingly and with an abundance of caution because I could sit down with a thing of butter and a whole loaf of bread and just keep going. And that's not a future I want to indulge in. I know how that goes because I used to live like that. So I have to pay attention to those things. But hopefully that helped me eventually get to the answer of your question. Bonnie said, I've been strict these last 4 days, 20 or less carbs. I feel better and have more energy. I'm a sugar addict, so I have to be strict. Yes, I want to say that just because I talk about eating more carbs when it works for you, please don't begin to think that I don't support a fully ketogenic diet. I 100% support it and think for some people, it's the greatest thing. It's much better than sliced bread, um, for your health, future well-being, all that kind of stuff. So I wanna help people and meet them where they're at with what they need. So for some people, that's more carbs. For some people, that's less carbs. And for each of us, it's just finding that baseline of feeling good, feeling energetic, feeling nourished, and feeling happy about your food choices, and prioritizing your long-term health over your short-term health, but still enjoying your short-term experience at the same time. It's a balancing act. All right, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up for the evening. I hope that, everyone has a fabulous night, and I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.